I am so excited to have my old mucker, Jessica Martin, here, who I haven't seen for 1,000 years. How are you, Jessica? Thank you for joining the Wonderbirds.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. This is my idea of the all-female water cooler moment, and it's just really, really lovely. I just met Dee and Natalie off the Zoom, so we've introduced ourselves. But Debbie, I just remember, first of all, many years ago, when we were both, child prodigies, and you were doing Marilyn Monroe on that show, Who Do You Do, amongst other things. And I was watching the TV, and actually I never for a split second wanted to be an impressionist. I always wanted to do, musicals and things, but I could do voices. And then weirdly, by lots of twists and turns, and then I ended up on Copycats, which was like the successor to Who Do You Do, and I was doing impressions as well. And then, like yourself, we've kind of been lucky enough to survive in the industry and reinvent ourselves and do all sorts of things. But
you are also, Jess, which I didn't know, this fantastic artist.
Oh well, I'm an artist when I get the time. I primarily I do sort of illustrative work. So I wrote and illustrated my first comic over 10 years ago in 2013, a little comic about Clara Bow. But the whole art thing came about because, well, I just talked about, show business, talking amongst friends here, being this like abusive boyfriend. Like when it's in love with you, it's all flowers and first night gifts and everyone wants to know you. And then it's like, oh, I've gone in a different direction and don't call me. So,
who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. And going up for these auditions with people that weren't born when you start. Anyway, all of that. Without, I don't want to get bitter about it. I wasn't bitter. I was in my, let's say, I was sort of in my mid-40s, and the kids were of an age where they were sort of, at school, and things were on a roll. But the thing that wasn't on a roll was my career was in this strange, nebulous place. Like, I wasn't really ever the ingenue. I've always been character, but I wasn't the young, interesting person in the script. I was the mum, or even the grandmother sometimes, with 2 lines. And I was just looking at this, oh, okay, this is how it's going to go. Anyhow, I thank the Lord. I'm very, very lucky. I have a family, and I have family life. And we went one Father's Day to the Tate Modern. And I have to say, all due respect to people that love modern conceptual art, it's not my vibe. I'm probably more a National Portrait Gallery or Tate Britain type of a girl. So I went to the Tate with the family, and it was great because there's lovely big open spaces and the kids could run around. And I'm looking at this brick on the ground with a bit of chain around it, and really, that's art. Okay. So anyway, we got to the gift shop, and I picked up this gorgeous book called The Creative License, parenthesis, permission to be the artist you've always wanted to be. And it was done in felt tip and fine liner, and it wasn't, the text was all handwritten. And the guy who wrote it, his name is Danny Gregory, and he'd been a very sort of high flyer in the world of advertising, but he always said he felt he'd lost his soul. He always wanted to do sort of handmade art, and he wanted to do hand-bound journals and things. Anyway, I read this book, and the takeaway was that if you want to do art, don't overthink it. Take a little notebook and a pen, not a pencil, no eraser, and you just draw everything you see in your everyday life. So just to fast forward, I was this woman doing the school runs, sitting in my car with my little, Ryman's stationery set, and I was drawing the dashboard, I was drawing buildings, I just draw all sorts of stuff that I never was interested in, because for me, art, when I was a little girl, I was always drawing movie stars off the, on the black and white television, and I'd always run out of steam by the time you got to the hands, because they're a bit difficult. And then lo and behold, the fairy godmother of showbiz decided to grant me a part. And I went and I did a tour, and the tour was Spamalot, the musical. And our leading man was Phil Jupitus, who is a man of many interests. He's really has a lot of, you know, eclectic tastes, including comics. So he'd be going, I'll just go to the comic shop, you know, the Boys and Batman 5 had just come out, and, you know, you come in with these comics. And I just thought, I suppose rather, you can't take the actress out of a person. I was doing my art, but I guess I sort of wanted a bit of feedback on it. So I showed him my drawings that I've been doing. And he just looked at them and he said, oh, he said, you've got lovely lines, sort of sketchy, sort of nice. I guess it was a backhanded compliment, sort of, you know, a bit unfinished, a bit like Disney in the 60s, you know, with the aristocrat. I thought, well, whatever, it's, you know, it sounds good to me.
Can't be bad.
He said, you should do a graphic novel. Oh my goodness, I can bring my imaginary old Hollywood world to life on paper and make stories with it. And that's what I did. And then the rest of the art story is that I sort of entered into it in the same way as going into show business. I sort of didn't have much, too much experience, but I had a lot of confidence quietly because I thought, I so want to do this. So I just talked to everybody that I met at comic conventions. And then because I'd done one storyline in Doctor Who many, many years ago, following on from the Impressionist stuff, there were lots of people who are fans of Doctor Who. And these are not only fans that come and buy the merch, these are people that write and draw comics. And they all sort of remembered me. So they reached out. It's like being a Freemason. Oh my God, you were in Doctor Who. And they just wanted to help me. You know, I've kind of got established in that field of comics and now graphic novels pretty quickly. And now here we are. And it's like, I don't have time to do that because suddenly I'm back performing, which is fantastic.
Where can we get it? Where's your lovely graphic novel?
Okay, so I've got like 5. It Girl, which is the Clara Bow comic, Vivacity, which is about Vivian Lee. Then there's Elsie Harris Picture Palace, which is almost out of print. They would only be available either on my website or for anybody that's watching. And actually, perhaps there are some women out there who've got a son or daughter who's into the comics and they want to go, you know, they might go to the London Film and Comic Con. I happen to be there this July. I'm going to have all my stock there. But I have recently signed up with a literary agent, and they're a husband and wife team, but Jill, who runs the agency, is very interested in graphic novels for the young adult audience. She said that, you know, the publishers are looking for that sort of thing.
I just thought it was naughty.
Do you know, that's hilarious. Years ago, I bumped into, so Paul Nicholas was in London doing a show called Dear World. And
he was on here last week.
Oh yeah, because he's doing Fawlty Towers, isn't he?
Yeah.
Just, oh, Jess, what are you up to? And I was telling him about, I said, I'm doing a graphic novel. Oh, a bit of porno. I said, no.
So tell me a bit about that, your lovely book that you wrote, your autobiography.
Right. So, well, that came about, that was another instance where I spoke before I'd thought things through. And I was at a lovely meeting of, there was a monthly meeting. I think they do it online now. There's a collective called Ladies Do Comics. Ladies spelled LAYDEEZ. And some of the women do make comics, and a lot of them just come along because they're just kind of interested. They don't necessarily write or draw anything. And we had a meeting back in 2015, I think, and it was the end of the year, and the 2 ladies, Nicola and Sarah, that run the thing, said, okay, we're going to go around the room. Everyone's going to introduce themselves. I'm going to say something about what they want for the coming year. So I said, what I want for the coming year is I would like to do my life story as a graphic novel. I said, I feel like I'm at a stage in my life where I've done a few comics and I've done a graphic novel, but I'm also getting back on track with show business. I said, I feel I'm on that. I'm looking on the top of a hilltop and looking at the past, but also looking forward. So anyway, having said those words, a lady who'd edited some other work of mine, she was starting up her own division doing graphic novels for Unbound Publishing. Very interesting publishers because they crowdfund the books, but it's not vanity publishing. It's, you still get published with all the things that go with it, but you've had to go out and raise money. So I really had to walk my talk. I had to raise £15,000, and I hate asking anybody for. I don't know whether you're like this. Like, yeah, I know that Natalie and Debbie, you've just done Calendar Girls. I'm sure you had lots of people that wanted to come and see the show, and you get that thing. Oh, any comps available? I'm thinking
Always,
always. But sometimes, for friends and family and people that that wouldn't have the opportunity, you're kind of. Well, I certainly do put my hand in my pocket. So there was part of me that's thinking, oh God, I just hate this, having to hold out the begging bowl. Maybe if I fund it half but I didn't. I just went out and I held my nerve. But people were so supportive and lovely, and friends who I hadn't seen for years who were doing really well. They just said, I'm going to give you this amount. I don't want, they didn't want anything back. Anyway, the other thing to mention about the book is that very sadly, the year that I wrote and illustrated this book, my beloved mum, Bernie, who is actually sort of like the heroine of the book in a way. I mean, obviously I do talk about my career, etc., but my mother was a very seminal part of me, me being able to do what I did out in the world. But she was, if you like, a shadow artist, because my father was a very charismatic man. He was a jazz musician called Edo Martin. And I guess nowadays we'd have all sorts of things like complex and narcissist and all those other, he was a man of great talent, but he wasn't the greatest husband. He was a good dad when it came to my career, but, he never came to any school plays and stuff like that. But, everyone's got their stories about how things weren't perfect. But my mother, my father was Singaporean. And
oh my God, Natalie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Your father was Singaporean?
Yes.
Okay, well, my family is I look really British, but my family are Eurasian. My mum, but from Singapore and Malaysia. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Natalie, we're going to have to meet up and talk, aren't we? Because you're like me, because I'm Eurasian. So my father was of Filipino heritage, even though he grew up in Singapore. And my grandparents were from Burma, but I had a DNA test. But my dad was definitely pure, like Filipino, no Spanish, because my surname originally is Martinez, and I thought, oh, maybe we had like a great grandparent that was Spanish. And my mother was Irish, and my mother was, she was the archetypal, what you think of an Irish mother, just so much love to give, but so much practicality, in contrast to my dad, who was like away with the fairies and a bit of a Peter Pan.
What year was he born? Was he actually born in Singapore?
Yes.
And what year was he born?
1931.
Aha. Okay, so my mum was born in 1920.
Oh my goodness. Well, the chances are they would have, who knows, we might even be related, but there might be sort of...
Well, the Singapore was only probably about 30 miles across in those days.
Yes.
Yeah. Gosh, 1931. Wow.
Absolutely. I was going to say, my dad, he grew up playing various musical instruments, because my grandfather he led the band, the dance orchestra at the Raffles Hotel. But my father just came over at the age of 23 to London, and he just became a bit of a name on the Soho jazz scene. So there was a club called the Côte d'Azur Club, which, Debbie, I bet your mum would have gone to the Côte d'Azur. It was like
Probably
mambos and cha-chas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And a lot of sort of young people in those days, their thing was going to milk bars and then hanging around in Soho and probably going, dancing at a nightclub like the one my dad played at. But my mum, so I was born illegitimately, but I only found out when I was 11 that, my parents weren't married. And I found this out because my half brother, who is Icelandic, it's all in the book. My story is like Long Lost Family meets, I don't know, Judy Garland wannabe. It's crazy. So my poor mum had to explain quickly why we were getting a visitor from Iceland in a week's time, who happened to be my big brother that I didn't know about. But anyway, such is life. And people say to me, oh my God, how did you feel about that? And how did that impact? But I'm such I'm such kind of a glass half full person, and I guess I romanticize things. So I never thought about the implications of, oh my God, your parents aren't even married, and and your dad's got this chaotic background. Just thought, oh, how amazing. I've got a big brother, and he's Icelandic, and he's a musician. I just thought he was just the coolest thing. But anyway, eventually, I was kind of not following in my dad's footsteps, but I used to sing with my father in various pubs and a nightclub called the St. James's Club, where you had all the luminaries of the 80s, because we're talking like 1983, and it was like Dudley Moore one evening, Roger Moore,
Wow.
Andy Williams sitting there having gin and tonic whilst I'm singing
Wow.
Shadow of Your Smile. And one evening we had this lady who was coming in from Los Angeles, and it was kind of a top secret thing, but the reason why she was coming to London was the Oscars were happening, and she was boycotting them with very good reason, because the lady in question was Barbara Streisand, and she had just directed and starred in Yentl, done this amazing thing. And of course, I mean, God, we talk about misogyny now, but those men in Hollywood did not want to, not even recognize her, just absolutely poo-pooing everything that she'd achieved. So she came, stayed at the St. James's Hotel, and she was sitting having dinner, and I'm at the piano with my dad singing these songs, and she just stood and watched me, and she applauded, and I was prepared. I had my Yentl soundtrack by the piano, and I said, oh my God, Miss Streisand, I'm your biggest. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm your biggest fan. Please, would you sign my Yentl? Oh, sure. Have you got a pen? I said to Barbara Streisand, have you got a pen? Oh my God. Oh, Debbie, have you met Barbara Streisand? Has she?
No, because the same year I was working with Omar Sharif. I wonder if she came to see the show that we were in.
Oh, they had a bit of a thing, didn't they?
They did. He used to like Jewish girls, apparently.
Well, come on, at the end of the day, Jews and Arabs, whatever's going, but all Semitic, and there's a look and an energy, and I can absolutely believe 100% that they had a super passionate thing going on Funny Girl.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. He used to say to me, you have to eat chocolate. I used to say, why? You have to eat chocolate because it's not feminine if you don't eat chocolate. I used to think, how ridiculous is that?
So were you doing the Prince and the Showgirl?
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was a very weird guy, but that's another story. But now I think what's also interesting about Natalie at the moment is that Clive does all those drawings as well. Natalie's husband is a caricaturist as well as an actor.
I can see. I was looking at your wall, Natalie, and I was thinking, are they Hirschfeld? Are they your husband?
Well, he loves Hirschfeld, but that one's Fred Astaire, Fred and Adele Astaire.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
Yeah. When you do your drawing and you do your comic books, are you actually telling the person's story within their actual life story?
There was a man called Conrad Veidt, who was he played the Nazi officer in Casablanca, but he was in quite a few movies, in the 1930s. Actually, these films will show up on Talking Pictures now, but like The Thief of Baghdad, which is the Powell and Fresco Burger version, and he played the evil Vizar in that. And he also was in a silent movie called The Man Who Laughs, and his image in that film, The Man Who Laughs, was the inspiration for the very first comic of the Batman, and he was the Joker. That was his image. Conrad Veidt was, oh my God, the most mesmeric actor. I researched him, and his history goes right back to like Weimar Berlin. He was in it was a gay movie called Different from the Others. He played this gay musician who's blackmailed and ends up committing suicide. His third wife was Jewish Austrian, and he literally was detained by Goebbels whilst he was filming in Germany and told, first of all, you need to divorce your wife, otherwise we're just going to expunge you from German cultural history. And he literally defied Joseph Goebbels. He said, I'm not going to divorce my wife. and I am not going to stop making. He made this wonderful film, Juices, about Joseph Oppenheimer, an 18th century, a true life character who helped some, Austrian duke in the 18th century, and for his efforts ended up going to the gallows. It's like when the money ran out, the duke blamed him and said, so the book, written in the 1920s, was a propaganda piece, because it was saying this is going on in the present day, but this has happened in history. And it's kind of, so Goebbels knew about it, and he just didn't want, because Conrad Veidt wasn't Jewish for a start, like, what are you doing letting the side down and being on the side of the Jews? But no, Conrad Veidt said no, and he managed to rescue some of his wife's family as well. But he used to put on his documentation, when they said, religion, he'd say Jewish, even though he wasn't. He was an absolute, just a person who was ahead of his time and believed in just people being humane and kind to each other.
Wow.
And I think he was possibly gay. We don't know, there's no evidence, but he did the gay film. A very, very beautiful man, kind of androgynous looking. So women fell in love with him, and I'm sure men fell in love with him.
Just when do you have time to, I mean, how old are your kids now?
So Ben is 25, and Francesca is 22.
Going back to what you said, well, at the beginning of the show, near the beginning, you said about creativity.
Obviously it helped having my dad, who, even though he wasn't in the musical theatre side of things, but he certainly would come up with me I remember auditioning for the Talk of the Town for Robert Nesbitt.
Wow.
Just for one of the singing jobs there. And Robert Nesbitt, he was so lovely. So Daddy played the songs, because my dad had worked at the Talk of the Town. And Robert Nesbitt says, well, I will say I think he was Eastern European or something. I'd say one thing, your daughter, she can sing and she's got something. She's going to do something. He didn't give me the job, but he just said, great, thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. So it's how long? Just give the show a plug.
Okay, Jerry's Girls, starring Cassidy Jansen, who won the Sweat for Anne Juliet. She's fabulous. Julie Yamini, this is the first time I've worked with her. She is fantastic, and she's done Cinderella up at the Hope Mill and Spamilton, which was the joke version of Hamilton they did at the Chocolate Factory. We're at the Menier Chocolate Factory. We've got an all-female band led by Sarah Travis, and it's incredible. We're running till the 29th of June, and it's Tuesdays to Sundays. The only matinees are Saturday and Sunday, but in our last week, at the end of June, there is a matinee on a Thursday. So some of you people can, you're free and easy. Maybe you want to come on a nice Thursday.
We will definitely come, and we won't ask you to if you can sort some tickets out, just because we've had that the whole of the time that we were in Sonning. Natalie and I were at the box office going, oh God,
there are comps.
I love the Chocolate Factory. It's a great venue, Chocolate Factory. Great fun. I love it.
Let me know when you're in, and we'll have drinks, and we'll carry on the chat afterwards. This is such a pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Jessica. Lovely show, and we'll see you soon. We'll be there. We're coming to see you.
Thank you.
Bye, darling.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.